Welcome to the 27th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we are going over the summer 2017 season's 9th week of shows. My name is Leo, and Destiny 2, 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 Destiny 2. And as a reminder, the correct pronunciation of Gjallarhorn is Gjallarhorn. And I'm so hyped, I feel the dark below in my pants. Also with me is Bcom.
I feel like entering into a Destiny 2 clan with Leo was super bad advice. Oh well, it's too late to turn back now.
I think it's great advice because clan rewards and the more the merrier. The better to reach
Feel the dark
rewards.
below in my pants. So
You're the one who wrote it.
I know, but it's so good. Oh man, all right.
And that wasn't a very good DLC either, so whatever.
I know. That's like my favorite, low key. My favorite part about it is that the dark below is like so underwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Not to get your spirits down, but how about you rip this next show a new one?
Starting on Sundays, we have Centaur no Naomi, also known as A Centaur's Life. And
This episode had nothing to do about a centaur's life.
Yeah, I have an alternate title for episode 9. It's strange. It was in the production notes, apparently. How to give your audience tonal whiplash whilst also insulting their intelligence. But the actual running title they went with was, What are the struggles of someone known as a prominent figure? / What is the life of someone known as a prominent figure like? So creative. Like, I mean, every week, they must hire someone to just come up with these brilliant titles.
This is their only job, just specifically the titles.
Yeah, they come in like one day a week. They like snort a line of like cocaine, and they're like, "Okay, I got it. I got the title this time. Woo, prominent figure."
How are you getting cocaine in Japan? They must be outsourcing overseas for that one.
Yeah, it comes overseas. It's fine. All right, so first half of the episode, Hime gets a smartphone, and she's trying to watch a video on it. But an ad plays starring a frog man named Jean Rousseau, which I don't think is any kind of reference to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, like the famous French philosopher. I mean, I guess it could be a reference, but there's nothing about him that's really related to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Anyway, they try to figure out what they should call him and end up at amphibian folk, I guess is a name. Su-chan has suggested they should call him Frenchman because, he's French, I guess. Or he spent a lot of time in France. He's apparently an incredible success story among the amphibian folk for doing, really well in school and then eventually just working his way up to buying this, huge conglomerate and being a businessman. So Tama tells the girls that Rousseau is coming to speak at their school and asks them to be part of his preparatory committee. But before that, we go away. We have a long series of scenes about Jean Rousseau himself. He meets with this angel folk businessman in a Japanese skyscraper. And the angel folk man makes a big deal of telling Rousseau that it's okay to shake his hand without wearing a glove. Rousseau is hesitant at first because I think there's a superstition that if you touch a frog's hands you could get warts, which I think is a myth actually, or if you just touch a frog at all you could get.
Well, the show didn't even say what that whole thing was about, so
yeah, it just made it clear that people think that frogs' hands are dirty usually, but this guy was like, no, screw that, I'm shaking your real hand. So after that meeting, Rousseau gets on a plane. He has this cat girl assistant, and she helps him change out of his clothes, and she rubs ointment on his shoulders. He's heading back to basically his homeland, where he gets out and he wears just basically a tribal skirt and meets with the other amphibian folk tribe leaders. And they sit around they sit in a little hut around a hookah. And there's armed guards outside. One of them has a spear, and then one of them has an M16. So they got everything covered, I guess. Spear and M16, most efficient weapons of defense. One of the leaders is wearing a military vest, and he's apparently hell-bent about going to war with the mammalians, the mammal peoples, to take back their oceans and their lands that he believes their ancestors had. And he calls Rousseau basically a pseudo-mammalian because he wears business suits and tries to coexist with them peacefully. But Russo believes that this philosophy of the military guy of just like thinking that their ancestors owned everything even though they don't have any proof of it is like a mammalian idea that's just like poison for his tribe. So he's trying to keep the peace, basically. So back at school, Russo concludes his speech, and for some reason the girls are dressed as maids and serve him tea as part of their preparatory committee. It's just interesting. But for some reason he didn't like the tea. I couldn't exactly tell why from how it was animated. It was a French tea. Maybe it was too hot, maybe it was too bitter. I don't know. I couldn't really tell. So yeah, that's the first half of the episode. Alright, here we go. Second half of this episode is a shit show. So it starts off with an animated version.
Like, you just call it a shit show, but I think I enjoyed the second half better.
Oh god. Alright, so this second half of the episode of A Centaur's Life, a show that literally 2 episodes ago had a 32-second scene of a lowly centaur getting nakedly dressed in her swimsuit as she makes lowly cooing noises, and recently had a scene where 3 animal girls compared the looks of their vaginas together, among other ridiculously funny and stupid scenes, decides that this episode it's gonna do a fucking Holocaust themed episode and try to land it in a serious way. And that makes me so angry.
It's so out of place.
It's so ridiculous.
Like,
right,
we always knew there was like
this.
dark things going on with the government and stuff, and then they kept bringing up like segregation and all that stuff earlier. So have a Holocaust actually happen in that world is very believable. But them put it in an episode, a whole half of an episode is like bonkers. That was not a good call, I don't think.
Yeah, so the second half is basically a flashback to like a World War II era version of this world, and it starts off with like B-17 bombers doing a bombing run of some like probably European city, and then there's like a firing squad on the ground of like some like Nazi looking Centaur officers murdering prisoners of war, and then we see there's like this blonde kid who's mixed in with those prisoners of war. I think he's like a cat kid. I can't tell. He was either a cat kid or a goat kid. I think he was a cat kid. We see a train of these people being carried somewhere, and so at this point you're like, okay, they're actually doing like a Holocaust segment because, you know, people were put on trains and taken to concentration camps to be executed, or worked to death, either way. So if that's the case, though, it was strange to me that like the boy who is like the point of view for us in this segment is like a blonde-haired, fair-skinned boy who is literally like an angel.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who they were like segregating, but there was a mix of everybody on both sides. So
that was my other issue with it, is that there were centaurs on both sides. There was just a mix of like a whole different mix. There was no like defining trait of like who was being discriminated against here.
So I guess they were going after their religious views or something, I would suppose.
I would guess, but they never mentioned that. Like, so they never said anything about that. So that was kind of disappointing because it would have been interesting if they had like said that. But anyway,
it would have made sense too for this world. Like, if
it would have made sense.
If like all the angel folk were in this encampment.
Like there's a scene later. I'm just gonna jump around a little bit because like there's a scene where the boy is talking to a man in a hut as like a couple other guys are fighting. Not a hut, like one of the like tents in the concentration camps, and the man is like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like even if we all looked exactly the same, people would still quarrel with each other over the differences of their clothing. Which is probably true. Like, people always find, it's like in human nature to like find differences in people and like separate over those differences. But so basically what happens over the course of this camp, like, you know, they're being worked to death. Like, the boy is barely keeping up. He's like suffering from malnutrition. Like, he keeps being punished for working too slowly. There's one Centaur prisoner who seems to get special treatment from the officers, probably because they're also centaurs. And the rest of the, prisoners get like really upset about this. Like they get really upset at him and they think he's a traitor, basically.
He also gets extra food too, but
yes.
They say, oh, well, that's, based on scientific stuff. He needs the more food, obviously.
Yeah, he's much larger than they are, so he would scientifically require more food, they say. But he seems to sort of be buddy-buddy with one of like the head officers. He like walks around and talks with him sometimes. So like, yeah, he's really getting the ire of everybody in camp. And there's this one scene where the little boy is getting punished yet again, and the Centaur takes him behind a shed and acts like he's beating the crap out of him, except he's actually just kicking like a little sack of something. And he throws his like leftover food to the boy and says like, hey, eat up, you got to keep your strength. And he explains that like he's probably going to die in this camp. Oh, and even if he was freed, he would probably be executed as a traitor for, I guess, the things that he did in the camp or did outside the camp. I don't know. So he's just like, I want you to survive because you're a good person. And the more good people that survive in this world, the better chance we'll have in the future to stop things like this from happening. So like basically right after this, like the camp comes under attack by a liberation force, like literally wearing like Allied helmets, like from the US liberating concentration camps in World War II. And there's like a Centaur who is like the head of the forces who like liberates the camp, which was also strange because like the camp is being run by these like Nazi Centaurs, but then there's also like American Centaurs who are like freeing them. It was just a weird mix of things. But anyway, like before, as the camp is being taken over, the Centaur who helped the boy inside of the camp got strung up and hung and killed and executed by the other prisoners of war. And then they wanted to kill the boy too because like somebody saw him getting food from that Centaur. But like the American Allied soldier Centaur like drives them off and says no. And then he says to the boy, like, if you don't have any family to go back to, you can come back to my country. And so that's when we get the reveal that the angel folk businessman from the first half of the episode is now all grown up. He's the one who shook hands with the frog guy. And he is the little boy from the concentration camp. He also has a picture frame on his desk with him and the Centaur, who was the soldier who took him in and like raised him, basically. So the message of this episode is just basically, that like you should show tolerance and like prop up the actions of good people who do the right things. And regardless of race or ethnicity, you should show people respect. It's like learning from the mistakes of our past. But this show is not the right place to do this. Like, no. You can't do all this stupid shit. And like, it's just such a ridiculous tonal whiplash. Like to have this Holocaust episode just randomly. It didn't even involve any of our main characters like at all. Like they had no issue. They had no views on this. It's just like a world building episode right in the middle. But it's just, it didn't fit in at all. I was kind of like, I was borderline offended that they like actually thought they could throw this Holocaust episode into this show. I'm not really offended, but like borderline, like it's almost too much. So yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
I kind of share all your same thoughts. I did not like this really episode at all, especially the first part. That frog guy was that was stupid.
Yeah.
I don't even know why he was there. Just to introduce us to the angel guy, who then we get to see him in the Nazi camp. I mean, okay.
I think he was there because he was trying in the modern times to get his tribe of people to embrace peaceful resolutions rather than war. And they thought that somehow like was a good parallel to the angel folk businessman who survived a concentration camp and learned lessons back then of tolerance towards different people. Because like, there's this whole running theme in this show of like how everyone has to be tolerant of everyone else. Like, and the way Japan implements it is like you'll go to jail if you're not, like, immediately.
Well, I'm starting to regret being my first podcast completely sober already. So I've got fantasy football drafting at 8:00, so I need to be 100% make very important decisions.
Draft Tom Brady. There you go.
No.
You should, though. All right. So, let's move on because I don't even want to talk about that anymore. It was just ridiculously out of place to have that episode in this series. Anyway, and I assume they're just going to go back to like Animal Girl hijinks from here on out. So
probably.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So the next show, why don't you take it?
Princess Principal, episode 9, Pell Mell Duel. And I had to look up pell mell, didn't know off the top of my head, but the definition is as an adverb in a confused, rushed, or disorderly manner. Adjective, recklessly, hasty, or disorganized, headlong. Noun, a state of affairs or collection of things characterized by haste or confusion. You get the idea.
Yeah.
So we open with Chise writing to her older sister about being a spy and the peculiarities between her culture and the Western culture. And I saw your what you wrote, and my first thing was, pretty sure you talked to nobody about being a spy.
I was like, yeah, why are you writing an open letter that's going to travel international borders to your sister saying that you're a spy? That's crazy. You're crazy. You're not a good spy.
And basically, you just use it as a way that Chise can basically be the narrator this episode, which was it was cool. I was fine with that. So she starts to introduce Beatrice, who is awoken by a terrible smell. It's kind of funny. She thinks Chise brought in Bcom's favorite food again, natto, but she's just fermenting vegetables this time.
Yeah, I looked up like new Kazuke, and it's like fermenting vegetables into like a pickled form. It sounds like it would smell pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's what natto is fermented beans, so.
Yeah.
After the OP, Chise goes on to describe her days. She says the food isn't that great as we look at her breakfast that consists of burnt toast, burnt eggs, and like blood pudding sausage. And like she just stealthily keeps sneaking bites of her onigiri she has in her lap, so that's funny. At 8 o'clock, classes begin, and she hasn't grasped the concept of writing English just yet, but she's mostly good in everything else. And all I can say is, Chise, don't worry about it too much. The English language is a fucking disaster. And it's a wonder any of us seem to get it even partially right. So, it's true, dude. If you compare our language to other people's, it's terrible. We have rules that don't make sense nor apply half the time, so whatever.
Yeah, it's random a lot. It's really weird.
So 9 o'clock, it's physical education, and during a game of cricket, Chise hits the ball, sending it flying like you would when you draw a samurai sword, and everybody's like, "Ooh." 10 o'clock is music, and the only instrument she can play is the conch shell. So everybody's like, has flutes and violins, and she's just in the back like, oh, it was having me laughing pretty good. 11 o'clock is art, and she draws Beatrice, but she draws her like an Asian lady. So it's pretty funny, and Beatrice yells at her. 12 o'clock, it's basically free time, and Chise is out walking with Beatrice, and she sees some people practicing fencing, and she wants to fence. So she thought she heard through, it's custom, throw a white turnip at your opponent. But actually, we know it's a white glove instead. She hits her with a turnip. And the two end up dueling anyways, and like a teacher steps in to stop it and just gets like whacked by Chise. So that's funny too. She goes to lunch and she describes the rest of her fellow spies. Dorothy is the leader, and when she pinches her collar, it's because she has a mission to tell them about. The princess also has bodyguards at the school that report on what she has been doing, so when they have to meet covertly sometimes, they use the laboratory as cover. In there, 3 other girls walk in, and we get introduced to Lily Gavstone, who is also one of the Home Secretary's collaborators. She's also the daughter of the Chief of Justice. She's not a trained spy, but seems to take the role of popular class bully instead. Chise and the princess do a pretty much great job of like shutting her down when she starts to pick on Ange.
Yeah, that was a pretty good burn by the princess. She was like, she was like, because like she was like, Lily is like, you should choose your friends better, and then Princess is like, but I thought of you as my friend. Should I reconsider that? It was a pretty good burn.
She's like, no. When they carry out the missions, they use an underground tunnel to come and go that leads to a garage where their vehicles wait. There's a pretty funny part where Dorothy uses her boobs to get into the building and distract the guard, allowing Ange to get onto the roof. Chise describes it as a weapon that she has not been able to acquire yet.
Boob jokes. jokes. Number one, they'll be back in this podcast.
Oh, there's so many boob jokes this week. I'm glad you caught on to it too. I was like, how many boob jokes can there be? Apparently, this is the week for boob jokes. But
look, it's the week 9. They've run out. The writers have run out of like actually good ideas. They're like, okay, we got to go back to the tried and tested boob size jokes. Let's do it.
But Chise meets regularly with Lord Harikawa, and it wasn't evident yet. So Chise is actually there to spy on them, also to determine which side will win, and that's so they know who to side with. You know, they're taking their own personal measures to make sure they're on the winning side. They're also there to supposedly help this agreement that they're trying to get to. Right. Chise is later watching a butterfly on the trail come out of its cocoon when a bunch of asshole dudes are like taking up the entire path, and like one dude like kills the butterfly because like Chise won't move out of their way even though she's only taking up a small portion of the thing, and then like she slaps him in the face with a white glove to challenge him to a duel, but fortunately the other girls show up to avert the situation. Princess later shows up to Chise's room to explain all the exact rules for dueling. Chise gets her duel and faces off against Mr. Asshole. He has provided the pistols for the duel, and it's obvious he is up to something. This was kind of, I thought, cliche. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
So, of course, Chise's gun misfires, and his fires perfectly. So, like, Chise picks up the bullet and uses a rock sling to, like, nail him in the right shoulder. I kind of found a loophole here. The show went out of its way to tell us they value the fairness of the duels above anything else, which is specifically why they use pistols.
Yeah.
So Chise just used a different weapon. She may use the little bullet, but she used a rock sling.
That would be completely disallowed.
I would feel that, ridiculous. But Lily's there because she's supposed to be the third party witness, you know, and she's like, I'll allow it, and like Chise ends up winning, completely humiliates the other guy. That's just this whole little scene.
I also wonder how fast Chise would have to swing that sling for a round bullet to actually break skin like it did. Like, that must have been really damn fast. I don't know.
I'm not sure myself.
I don't know either.
Yeah. But Chise at the end of the scene does comment, because the only person there with her is Princess, and she goes, oh, the others didn't show up. And I immediately, and your brain went one direction, and mine was the one the show wanted it to go. And I went, yeah, where are they? That's really suspicious.
My brain just like freaking went haywire on this one, because I didn't realize that Beatrice, Dorothy, and Ange were not present in that scene. I thought they were all standing on the sidelines. So I was like, who the hell is she talking about that didn't come? Is she talking about like her sister who she was writing letters to? Is she talking about her father who died? Like, I don't even know what's going on. So I like did all this like looking up like the Japanese like words that she actually said. I asked people for like, can you translate this? And then like I came back and I was like, oh, the original translation was the best one. I just like didn't understand the context.
And I'm reading your notes and I'm like, what word? What did he miss?
I just totally missed that they were not at this duel. And so she was like, oh, they didn't come. I guess she was upset that her friends weren't there to support her.
Yeah, I think I was already kind of thinking it. It just wasn't in the forward part of my brain. It was just in the back until the show brought it up. And I was like, yeah, that is weird. Yeah. So Chise meets with the Lord again, and he pressures her again about if she thinks Project Changeling will succeed since he is there to help settle the treaty. Back at their housings, Ange meets her outside and says they have a meeting, and when Chise goes to the room, nobody's in there. It turns out the girls are celebrating her win, and they, of course, get the celebration all wrong because they try to do it like they do in Japan, where she's from.
They try to do like a sumo wrestler, like, I don't know, congratulations ceremony for like samurai, and it's all wrong. It
was basically the show just showing, Chise's been getting a lot of our customs wrong, and then it's just showing everybody else getting her customs wrong. So it's just kind of neat. But this is where we find out that the other girls used the duel earlier to sneak into Lily's room since she was away mediating for the duel. This also made Chise feel like she was useful because earlier in the episode she said she wasn't feeling that useful. It turns out Lily had a direct phone line in her room where she was reporting, I believe, on the princess and stuff like that. So what they ended up doing was tampering with the line, and now they can listen in on the conversations. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the episode.
So wait, who does that Lily Gavison person have a direct line to? I can't remember. Is it like
I wanted to say it was her father, who was
one of the Home Secretary's
who is also one of the Home Secretary's collaborations. And it said, I forgot to put it in here, but her father, she's the daughter of the Chief of Justice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so like listening to her, they could hear some sensitive information.
Supposedly,
right.
Yes.
So I was a little bit disappointed in this episode just because I felt that we'd already had like a couple of decent backstory episodes about Chise. So it felt weird to me for them to do like a point of view episode again of her that is set in the past and not in the present. Like I just keep wanting the show to move forward and like execute whatever its final arc is going to be. Like parts of this episode almost felt like a recap to me because Chise's telling like how she thinks of the girls like from her perspective, and she's telling us things that we like already know about these girls. So it's like I've heard all this information before, like why are we even doing this? And then even the duel and the outcome of the duel and like her conversations with Lord Horikawa don't seem to change anything that she told Lord Horikawa in prior episodes. Like she still doesn't know which side to join. So I just felt like the plot didn't really move forward much. Like the only things that happened where they got this like listening post in for like the justice guy, and she became closer friends with the girls. And I was just like, that's not enough at this point. This is episode 9 of this series. Like it needs to start moving now. Like I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed we're not really focusing on the world, but maybe that's just because that's what we were expecting, and the show maybe did not have that intention in the first place. So yeah, I can't hold it to it yet. I think I need to see the rest of this whole 12 episode series before I make any judgmental decision on it. So
yeah, we got 3 more episodes to go, which is a decent amount of time. If those episodes are as dense as the first 2 episodes of the series were, then they could definitely end it in an interesting way. I still think it's like salvageable. It's just they need to start moving.
Yeah, but they're going to have to do it with the last 3 episodes when they do it. So,
speaking of series that don't need to start moving because they just stay at the same pace and it's relaxing, on Tuesdays we have Restaurant to Another World. Episode 10 is called Fried Seafood / Melon Soda Float.
Black.
All right, so the first half of this episode, we meet 2 dwarves, one named Gillum and his friend, who I never caught that guy's name. I don't think they ever said his name in the episode. So it's just Gillum and his friend.
I don't really remember, but I can say these 2 dwarves can fucking drink. Holy shit.
They can. Oh, they're like barrels. They're like never-ending barrels. So they're climbing up this mountain, and Gillum has like constructed a log cabin, kind of like shoddy build, but it works. And there's a door that appears there to Restaurant Nekia. So he takes his friend there for the first time. They go in and they order the fried seafood dish, which is like fried cod, fried squid rings, and scallops, and as well as 2 mugs of like beer and a bottle of whiskey with rocks, is what they say. It's on the rocks, but with rocks is what they say. I don't know.
Yeah, that maybe. Well, that couldn't be a mistranslation, so I don't know what happened there.
I mean, unless with rocks means that you get 2 glasses with ice in them and you pour the whiskey on yourself. Like, is that a distinction from on the rocks where like they serve it to you with the whiskey already in the ice in the glass? I don't know. Maybe there's some crazy distinction I don't know about.
I don't know either, man.
So Gillum is apparently the best brewer of these dwarves, and his friend is surprised that like he would praise this restaurant's like liquors and spirits over his own. Back in the kitchen, like Kuro is relaying the dwarves' orders, and Aletta shows her how to like properly fill a mug of beer with a 7-to-3 ratio of beer to foam, which looks really good, honestly. When they get their beers, Gillum and his friend like just down them, and then they admire the craftsmanship of the glass mugs, which are like much smoother, much more uniform than the ones that they can create. So they order 2 even bigger mugs of beer, which they also just immediately down even before they get their food. And then they get the fried fish.
Gave me a brain freeze watching them.
Yeah. They get the fried fish and then a few more beers, and like they just like scarf them down, especially the friend who like eats his entire dish of fish before Gillum says like, oh, by the way, there's tartar sauce and it's really good and enhances the taste of the fish. And he's like, what? Why didn't you tell me sooner? So they order 3 more plates of the fried fish so he can try it out. And then they also get their bottle of whiskey. And this was the section of the episode that was dedicated just to Leo, with the dwarves sipping away at their whiskey and enjoying it.
Why are we talking about alcohol when I'm sitting here stone cold sober? Move on.
To my surprise, Gillum also tells his friend about different things that he's tried at this restaurant. Like he's tried the seishu sake, which is like clear sake, and other unfried fish dishes. Finally, there's a customer at this restaurant who eats more than one thing. I'm very impressed. When the dwarves like wake up, they're back in that cabin. I guess they get kicked back to the place that they came in from, and Gillum's friend decides he's going to make some improvements to the construction for next time. So he builds out the cabin with like stone walls and other necessities, like really nice beds. It's like a nice place for travelers to stop in when they need to, and they need a break in the mountains. But he also installs this like ridiculously elaborate steel vault door that only he and Gillum have the key to, and it covers the entrance to Restaurant Nekia, so they can keep it all to themselves. So that's the first part. In the second part, we're introduced to a prince who kind of looks like Aladdin, and he's from the Western continent. His name is Sharif, and he also has a little sister named Princess Renner, who is now probably top 3 hottest girls in this show. Which is saying a lot, because there's some really gorgeous girls in this show. And so they go to Restaurant Nekuya. Sharif has had his eye on Princess Adelheid, who's a character we met in a previous episode. She's the princess with blonde hair. She loves the parfaits, and she has like a strange illness that keeps her from like doing too much. She's like locked up in her castle in a room. So Sharif and his sister are from this like Arabian style area on the Western continent called the Land of Sand, where magic is very common.
Original.
Yeah, that's so original. Land of Sand.
They must be hiring the guy who does the titles for Centaur's life.
She's just so busy this anime season. He gets around to every studio. So magic is very common here, and recently there's been this magic that has been used to create iced coffee that has spread like wildfire. Sharif is intent on marrying Adelheid, the Eastern Continent princess, and has made some like diplomatic moves to tie their alliances close together. But his sister reminds him that like, hey, there probably won't be any marriage talks with them because the princess still is suffering from her illness. So Renner is Sharif's sister, by the way, but from another mother. And at that point, I was like, please don't go Aramaga Sensei on me, show.
Oh, God.
Her mother was this lowborn noble who won the king's heart and became the court magician. And then like she taught Renner and Sharif magic as they were children. So anyway, they head back to the restaurant. Sharif orders like a coffee float with ice cream, and Renner orders a melon soda float with soft serve ice cream. And they focus on Renner and how she enjoys her melon soda in like 3 ways. She enjoys just like eating the ice cream off the top, or drinking the melon soda through a straw, or the third way, which is waiting for some of the ice to like melt into smaller pieces, and then getting like a spoonful of that and a little bit of the melon soda and like crunching into it.
Let's be honest, that whole scene was just so we could look at her luscious lips.
And her luscious breasts, probably, because she's packing some big ones. So
yep,
she's very, very beautiful. I love her character design. But then, what's her name? Adelheid shows up, and Renner is like trying to get her brother to like move forward. So she's like, "Please, hey, sit with us."
He's a little shy.
Yeah, he is. And so Adelheid orders her like chocolate parfait as usual. Renner, since they're done with their drinks, she orders like a cola float, and Sharif orders like Vienna coffee because he wants to warm himself up. Also, he's just so embarrassed and so nervous that he cannot even look at Adelheid because she's too beautiful, and he's just like turned away and blushing. And Renner's just like shaking her head and thinking to herself, if my brother could just hold himself with like even a shred of his normal dignity around this girl, like, dude, she would fall for him instantly. But he sits and blushes and looks away, and that's basically where the episode ends. But I liked that they keep bringing characters from previous episodes back and interweaving them into new stories or other characters' plots, and I like that. They also showed a map this episode of like all of the continents of this world where a lot of these people come from. And I was actually interested, like, do you think this restaurant is only connected to that one world? Because I wasn't under that impression at first, but I think every character just comes from this one other world, even if it's like the space dragons. Because they seem to all just be living on different continents and stuff.
It does seem to be that way, especially, since they did this episode, and we know that one was interacting with another, and that happened the last episode also. So I'm just, assuming it connects to a completely different reality or world and not like multiple different ones.
Yeah, I think it's just one other world with a lot of different areas where a lot of different kinds of people come from. Because I think I even remember seeing a scene where they were like looking up at the night sky and they saw the broken off moon. And it's the same moon that the space dragon lives on, Kuro or whatever. So, yeah. Interesting.
We will see.
Yeah, I liked that melon soda float. I did not get one of those while I was in Japan, and I kind of regret it now.
See, I don't really like melon, so I probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I don't know how much I would like it either. I think the coffee float would have been pretty awesome, though.
That would have been good.
All right.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am very ready.
All right. Let's talk about Tsuredure Children and try not to gush over the show for too long. Episode 9, Square One. Why does it say episodes? I hate that shit.
I have no idea.
So Chizuru and Takuro's class is doing swimming today, and the two keep catching each other's eye contact. Chizuru's like really started to consider love for the first time in her life, because when she first started off, like, to her, anybody even romantically thinking romantically about her was just like impossible. They finally do like an awkward wave, but neither can figure out if the other was waving at them or not. And they eventually line up side by side before they get to do their swim, and then they have their little convo, and they get most of the misunderstandings out of the way. But then Chizuru asks, who was the girl that you kept looking at, and I was it the girl next to me or something? But then like teacher's like blows her whistle for them to jump into the pool and swim, and he's like, oh, I was looking at you, and like and then he just quickly jumps into the pool and like causes her to freeze up, which is pretty funny. Teacher's like, what are you doing? And then like she jumps in and she contemplates this whole thing as she swims down to the end, and she gets to the other end of the pool, and when she gets down there, she says, I was looking at you also, but it's actually Goda sitting at the other end, because Toguro like made a break for it as soon as he got out, and Goda is like, do you want me to relay this message to him? She's like,
no, don't do it.
Don't do it. It's really
I just
funny.
liked in the scene how before they got in the pool, he was trying to stop himself from looking at her, but he couldn't do it. Like, he literally physically could not stop from looking at her in the swimsuit. And like, as someone who used to be like an adolescent boy growing up and like would have like summer swimming lessons and stuff with like other girls from my school, like, that is very accurate. Like, you cannot stop yourself from looking sometimes. Like, it's just hormones are raging, and you're just
we're
like,
in middle
so
school
cute.
here.
Yeah,
Oh man,
exactly.
Nobody knows how to handle your hormones yet. Okay, our next couple. Kanda is in class, worried about what she should do since Takase hasn't gotten back to her about her confession over a month ago. She debates just saying maybe they should go back to being friends instead. But Takase, on the other hand, feels like he might have waited too long to accept her confession. He's just basically being super, super shy. I didn't really think too much about the scene, but the two proceed to get almost nowhere since they have no idea what the other is thinking. So misunderstandings happen, and they are still not dating, just in this awkward limbo between friends and dating.
Yeah, that scene was a little flat for me. I didn't get much out of that one.
Yeah, and I couldn't really say much without just writing it word for word.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I like this couple, though. We're back to our kissing couple, Kamine and Goda. Kamine wants to kiss again because the first kiss took her by surprise and she choked. But when they show her remembering it, it looks like she just like coughed into his mouth.
Yeah, that's how it looked the first time too. It's so weird.
It's really funny. But the problem is she doesn't know how to bring this up. They end up at the park where she makes it apparent they are alone. And Goto, on the other hand, thinks her odd behavior is about the kiss and promises himself not to do it for a while again. Kamine says, doesn't being here alone make you think of that kiss? Clearly implying she wants to do it again, but Goto thinks she wants to go someplace else because she's uncomfortable about it. But then Kamine boldly like lays her head on his shoulder, like saying she's sleepy. And she's like, oh, do you want to go home? She's like, no, I just want to lay here. Then she puts her head in his lap. She's like losing her mind at this point. Her heart rate's going off the top. And then Goto actually nods off himself and starts to like slouch closer and closer and closer to Kamine's face, who's like expecting a kiss. But then he like wakes up and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I almost hit your face. But like her brain is like fried at this point. She can't take it anymore.
My only objection with this scene is that if your girlfriend had her head in your lap, you would not fall asleep. Like, that would just not happen.
Like, he went asleep immediately, too.
Yeah, he just fell asleep. She's like, I wonder if this will put him in the mood. And then she looks up and he's sleeping.
She's like, oh, maybe he's tired from his club or something.
Yeah.
I didn't take it.
That was funny.
Okay, now on to my favorite character, Minagawa.
This is the best scene.
Yeah, and we didn't get to talk about this because we hadn't picked this up yet, but she became my favorite character when Furua's little sister got on his phone and pretended to be him.
And then she instantly recognizes her and then messes with her.
Yeah, I loved that scene. I'm like, this is my favorite character in this show. I just love how she's messing with her.
She's like, yeah, he slept over my house the other day. We slept together. And then the little sister's like, they slept together. Why would they do that? It's just so
it's like she messages back. She's like, what are you talking about? All we did was sleep together. But then she's like, but what about the baby? Like,
then her sister's mind like explodes. And then she goes like crying to mom like, Furuya made a baby, or like Minagawa, whatever his name is.
Well, I really like Minagawa because she's very, very clever, and she loves just to play with Furuya because she just loves to tease him, and it's super easy. She constantly goes between I was joking and stuff like that, or I didn't really mean it when she says she likes him and stuff. And she's trying to find out a way to say I like him in a serious way because she keeps doing it playfully. And she starts doing it in various tones and like poses, trying to find her true self. And she eventually says, maybe I can't do my serious like in words. So she says for him to close his eyes. She leans in seductively saying, keep your eyes closed. And she just keeps saying it and gets closer and closer. And then the stupid curtains get in her way. And it looks like she is kissing him. But then the curtains fall back and they're apart again. And she's holding up two of her fingers, teasing him. And he says, you just use your fingers. She says, I never said that. Can't you tell my serious like from my fingers? Well, can you? And he can't answer. And if we go by how she messes with him, she did kiss him.
I don't even know. Probably. Yeah, probably she did. And then
because very early on, she's like, I like you. And he's like, he's like, really? And then she goes, I'm kidding. So yeah, it just, to me, it means she did kiss him.
I feel like the voice actress did an amazing job of saying the word ski in like so many different, slightly different tones. Like they just did they knocked it out of the park because like every single time she said ski, she said it in a very slightly different way.
She enunciated it out of like that whole sentence. Ski stuck out more than anything.
Yeah, it was really well done actually. Yeah.
It was very good. That makes me think of the voice actress who does Aho Girl. Either she loves that job or she hates it because she throws her voice out after every episode.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. You got anything else you want to add to Tsuredure Children?
No, just that this continues to be awesome. I look forward to watching it every week. It's so good.
Okay. Now we can move on to Wednesdays with Sakura Quest. Episode 22, The New Moon Luminaria. Kadota visits the woodworker who is building them a new shrine to mount the golden dragon, and he just comes bearing some refreshments and stuff like that. They just have a little chit chat. But our 6 girls from the last episode are still at the park. No, 6 girls. Our 6 people, the 3 guys and the 3 girls, are still at the park trying to figure out the code with no luck. Meanwhile, Shiori and Maki are at the dorms making food. I assumed preparing dinner and stuff, whatnot. And Erica comes downstairs demanding the end of the story. Maki tells her the woman was just running from her wedding, so it wasn't really a big thing or anything like that. And also, of all the times for Shiori to wear her hair down, it's when she's cooking. That was dumb.
Yeah, but, and I think also the point of that wedding story, I think, was that like the bride had all these dreams about what her wedding would be like, and then when she actually got there, it wasn't the same. And so Eric is like, are you trying to tell me I shouldn't go to Tokyo, basically?
Yeah. But we go back to the 6 in the park, and Riri cracks the code by reading it vertically instead, in just a different way. The first thing to do is walk 2,420 steps from the rabbit, which would take them way out of the park. So they're like, what the heck? So they go to Angelica's to try to figure it out and really get nowhere. And then the girls end up going back to the dorm. At the dorm, they're all sitting around eating snacks. I wonder what happened to the dinner I thought they were making earlier.
I don't know.
I was like, huh? So Yoshino starts to get on Erica for leaving her mom alone to run the restaurant and go to the city, but then she stops herself before she gets too far because she starts to have deja vu, because that's exactly what she wanted when she first moved away and stuff like that. Yep. It was pretty funny.
She sounds exactly like her mom did back then.
Yeah. But I guess it's starting to snow really heavy, so Yoshino and Riri end up staying the night. And then, are you ready for our second boob joke?
Yes, I am.
So Shiori joins Erica in the bath, and it's boob joke time. Bcom's favorite segment. I knew he'd love this. Erica looks at Shiori and says, "They're floating. Are you trying to show off?"
And then that was it though. So first of all, they don't show them. They never show her boobs, and they just move on immediately. It's just a quick joke, and they drop it, and that's why I was okay with this, because
and they just immediately break into Shiori, trying to convince Erica to at least wait till she is older before trying out her dreams. You can still pursue your dreams. Just you need to wait a little bit longer before you can get there. Erica suddenly starts hurting and grabbing her jaw, and it turns out what she has is a loose molar because she still hadn't lost the last of her baby teeth. Cue this scene of insanity as everybody tries to figure out what to do about Erica's pain since she's not old enough to take the aspirin they have because she's still underage. And there was just something I wanted to point out. I was like, as soon as I thought, I was like, wait, you still lose baby teeth in middle school? I wonder how true this is. I should probably shoot my mom a text, who is a dental assistant. And then fortunately, I didn't, because Maki's like, oh, I worked as a dental assistant for a while, and this happens sometimes. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not even going to bother at this point. But then they eventually hold Erica down, because there's supposed to be pressure points in your feet to help with the pain. And all it does is tickle her, and Shiori's boobs are getting smashed into Erica's face.
Also, the pressure point was the wrong one. The one they used was the one for constipation.
But Riri's the smart one here, and she calls her grandmother and, asking if they still had some of that aspirin left. And she's like, no, but she contacts pharmacy, and they said, oh, they would open up really quickly for them. So as Erica snoozes on the couch, Shiori talks about some of the great things she likes about the town, and Erica is actually awake on the couch and seems to consider what Shiori is saying. Angelica calls and asks if Anji is there, her little brother, and it seems he has disappeared looking for the golden dragon to wish Erica back home in the snowstorm and hasn't come back yet. The whole town goes on high alert looking for him. Erica also seems to be really worried about him. They finally think to look for him in Hippo Park because they talked to him earlier in that Angelica, so I don't know why it took him so long to think about that.
Yeah. After
looking around for a bit, Sando-san calls Kendachi and says, oh, he found Anji in the park and is now at the police box with him. Anji's delivered back to Angelica's, and Erica shows up, and the adults start to tell Erica she can always take care of her dreams later, and she just loses it because nobody will buy cool clothes in this town because she wants to open a cool store of cool clothes and stuff like that.
She's like, yeah, why would they even buy cool clothes? Why would they even come at night? There's not even lights in the shopping district. Nobody would even see the cool clothes. She's just losing her shit.
Yeah, and then her little brother, Anji, being a little kid, he's like, I'll open a cool clothes stuff for you, big sister. And then they all hug, and I'm just barfy sap stuff.
And I didn't think it was that sappy because I thought it was good for Erica.
I was fine until the little brother broke in, and I was just like, yeah. I had to roll my eyes. I was like, this is stupid.
I just thought it was important for Erica to realize that like her leaving would affect more than just her own future. It affects her little brother as well. Like, because he loves her, he would grow up without her. So.
Yep. All right. So there's a quick scene of Erica's tooth like coming out while eating a cookie, which is the show just symbolizing she has grown up some, flat out.
Yeah.
The girls are like walking around town feeling kind of bummed about stores slowly disappearing one by one. And she already has an idea to hang lamps all over the shopping district. And they even have Doku install LED lights in them instead. So that's cool. The point being, it will make the town look more inviting at night. The three guys end up cracking the code and find the buried treasure. But when they open the box, it's just a toy dragon. As they drive back through town, they go through the shopping district and see all the lanterns hung up and are just like totally floored by the whole thing. So,
yeah, I liked that part about them digging up the dragon and it just being a toy, because that's like how you remember things as a kid. It's like, oh, this was that cool treasure we found, but years later it's like, oh, it's not actually anything impressive. Just a little toy we used to play with.
Yep. Okay. Now we can move on to Thursdays with Gamers, which was a fantastic episode, and Bcom has no idea what he's talking about. He could take that advice I gave him last episode about shoving his opinions way up his butthole.
Way up in his butthole.
Take it literally this episode. And from what I can tell, a ton of other people really enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really liked this one. I don't know why it didn't click with me. It clicked with me at the end, but not in the beginning couple parts.
The second half, I was rolling. I was laughing so hard. Episode 8, Aero Gamer and Watching Mode / Gamers and Half Their Life Game.
This is the goddamn Centaur's Life guy coming back. He did a split title for them too. He's just making the rounds this week. This guy must be a consultant.
He's really popular. But anyways, we open with a currently mysterious character talking about how she is good at academics and sports, but never got first place in anything. She was always second and third, and was surprised when she became the student council president when she went to high school. It seems she had finally taken the top spot in something, but Karen seems to have ruined it for her somehow.
Yeah.
This person turns out to be Konoha Hoshinonori. Blah, blah, blah. Lots of nose in there. Chiaki's younger sister. She secretly enjoys erotic games and revels in being in the company of cute girls. So when the rest of
she's the main character of Ora Emo, then, I guess. No.
Yeah. So when the rest of the student council leaves that comprise of nothing but cute girls, Konoha locks the door and then rubs her face on one of the seats, like inhaling and stuff and saying, I love the smell of young maidens. She's like Master Roshi in a little girl's body.
That's actually pretty
funny. Later that evening, she dresses up as an older man so she can sneak into the 18+ section in a game store. Well, in there, she remembers hearing the rest of the student council behind a closed door talk about how if Karen had come to their school, she would be student council president instead. Kind of brings her down a little bit. But Keita and Aichi are also in the store, and she starts spying on them because she recognizes their uniforms. She knows that's where her sister goes to, and that's where Karen goes to also. She even describes Keita as the average game character in a dating sim.
It's so true.
But yes, so true. She overhears like Keita describing a game he recommends, and it like really touches home for her, making her tear up.
Yeah, because at first Keita recommends like a very popular game, but he's like, oh, but I never said it would be a good game for you. Like, because like she's thinking to herself, oh, that's just a popular game. It's not actually good. And then he's like, actually, here's a game I really like. And it was one that she had like looked at briefly before as she was walking. And yeah, it's like a lesser known game, but it's actually a really good example of the genre. So she approves of that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Then also we get like a lengthy shot of her body back home showing us she has nowhere near the figure of Chiaki.
Yeah, she's wearing like short shorts. She's dressed very much like the girl from Oriamo, the main character. Though the hair is different. She's got like pigtail hair, but still it's similar.
So the second half begins with Urahara trying to get everybody together so they can solve the misunderstandings. And he does this by inviting everybody to play a board game called Love Love Game of Half-Life that Chiaki's like mother or her won at like one of these raffles or something like this.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
Yeah. So they decide to do it at Chiaki's house, and Urahara gets everybody together. So we got Karen, Urahara, Amano, Chiaki, and what's pink hair girl's name?
Oh,
Aguri. Thank you. Yeah. And like they assemble at her house, and the atmosphere is already very awkward. And the game is set up so that you just go along with the events it sets up for you in the game. And there's not much else to it. If anybody's ever played it's just called The Game of Life, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite games growing up, actually. I love it.
So this hilarious scene of each one going in turn, and just all the absurd stuff on this board that just like correctly reflects their current misunderstandings.
This is a very messed up game of life. This is like every single thing that comes up is like a horrible relationship situation that somehow exactly parallels what's going on with the people.
And this is where I think the writing in this show is just shining. It's amazing. So here we go. I'm going to try to get through this without laughing too much. Aguri goes first and lands on newlywed life is going great. You are blessed with a new child on your honeymoon. You and your spouse receive 3,000 yen in gifts from everyone. And it turns out Amano is her spouse in the game. Hilarious. And like she turns to him like, you got me pregnant? Which they do again later on. Oh man. And here we keep going. The student part begins with Amano and Aguri dating, and Chiaki can't find a job after graduating, and Karen rolls a 8 and lands on your crush gets married and you become more focused on work. 50,000 yen in extra income.
Karen just makes fucking bank during this game.
Yeah, but really she's funny. So freaking miserable. Okay. And Urahara lands on the marriage space and gets to spin once again and gets a chance to force a marriage with the person represented by the number. It lands on Chiaki, and Aguri looks at Urahara threateningly. He's like, what can I do? It's a game. Chiaki takes her turn and gets your lover cheats on you and you are forced to pay their lover compensation for mental suffering. You and your spouse lose 5,000 yen. I love this. All this stuff. This board game is so insane.
So it's basically Urahara cheated on her, right? So Aguri and Keita both look at him like with these eyes, like, "Of course you did."
Yes, it's just everybody's reactions. Okay, so we move on. Amano spins and gets your lovey-dovey newlywed life reaches high tide. You bust your bed getting busy. You and your spouse pay 6,000 yen. It's so great, and like. Aguri is looking at like Amano all accusingly. He's like, what? And then Aguri rolls and gets the exact same thing. I literally could not breathe at this point.
I didn't even notice that when I was watching. That's actually really funny that they got the same thing.
I was losing it. Karen rolls and she gets your love interest won't even look at you, but you're popular with your clients. 100,000 extra income, like absurd amounts of money she keeps getting. Urahara spins and lands on you cheat on your partner with their sister. There is bloodshed. Miss a turn.
Oh, maybe that's the one I was thinking about when they look at him like of course you cheated. That's
yeah, really and then like I guess Chiaki's little sister was in the hallway and like slams the door, and Urahara's like, I actually felt like the bloodlust coming from her in the back of his head. Oh man, Chiaki spins and gets you realize that your soulmate was someone else. You learn that you had some fateful connections with them and you become infatuated. You get distracted at work and lose 3,000 yen. And Urahara is just losing his shit at this point. He's like, how accurate can this fucking game be? Amano spins and lands on the same space as Chiaki. Now Urahara literally does lose his shit. He like stands up and just spouts this crazy stuff and sits back down, and it fucking bonkers. And they all actually have like a little moment where they are actually enjoying playing the game. We see them doing this. But of course it doesn't last for long, because Aguri rolls and gets the person you were seeing before makes a move on you. She blushes and Urahara sighs with like some relief, and then she reads the rest of it. But your love for your current partner is unwavering. You turn him/her down without a second thought and reaffirm your own love. You have yet another child, and Aguri looks at Amano again like, what the hell, man? Then Karen spins and gets, you become an important person. You make money. Earn 1,000 yen.
And she's like, they're not even trying anymore.
And
that was maybe my favorite part. I like that
she's
a lot.
just so deflated at this point. She's just like lost her will to live. But Chiaki's sister shows up and asks if she can talk to her real quick. Chiaki leaves the room and Amano says he's interested in Chiaki's sister, but no, not in a weird way. He's like, you just wonder, the similarities between them. I don't know. I get what he means.
Yeah,
he just
they have very
right
similar faces. They're very similar people. He's never seen her before.
Yeah. But Amano gets a game event invite, and Uehara uses his toe to hide Chiaki's phone under the couch because if they're in the same room, he's afraid they might figure it out. And we know he does this because he's trying to hook Karen up with Amano. That's why.
So that's the reason, right? He wants Karen and Amano to work out. That's why he's trying to hide from Chiaki.
And that's why he wants Amano and Chiaki to have the misunderstanding about each other.
Or does he just like that Chiaki fawns over him all the time? Is that the other part of it?
No, I don't get that at all.
I think he kind of likes it. Otherwise, why would he keep going out with her all the time?
No, he's so distraught with Aguri, though.
Yeah, that's true. And that's part of why I was annoyed by the little scenes in this episode, because I'm just like, come on, dude, just tell Aguri how you friggin' feel. And then finally they deliver on that. So
yeah, so the show basically starts wrapping up a lot of misunderstandings, right now. Karen starts watching Amano play over his shoulder, and they're having a little moment. And Aguri slides over to Uehara, saying she's glad it's working out between those two. And Uehara finally confronts Aguri on what she thinks of Amano. They end up holding hands since that situation is solved now. That's nice.
Yes.
And Karen is asking about the people he plays with online because she's really interested. And Chiaki walks in hearing all this about an in-game name and the people he plays with, and he's just throwing praise on her.
Freeware game developer.
He's talking about the game developer name and the best person he plays with is, her. And she's just taking this in. And Uehara, as you would assume, is about to have an aneurysm.
Yep.
And
but also Chiaki finally fucking figures it out too.
You just see her sitting there, and it slowly starts to come to realization that they know each other. And Amano, like I said, he's just laying the praise on heavily for her. And it just ends scene. And then after credit scene with Konoha finding Chiaki on the floor with her brain basically shutting down. It's hilarious. I love this episode so much.
There's a funny line. Well, I didn't think, I thought it was a stupid line. So I thought
it was funny.
Several times through this series, they've referred to people as normies, and it's just oh god, fucking 4chan normies, get out. There's this line in this episode where Keita talks about his quote unquote meat space friends, as in not digital friends, but the friends who live in the meat space. And I was like, I have not heard that one. That is ridiculous. Please go back to 4chan, Keita. So, yeah, it was sort of weird to me that this was Konoha's introduction episode, yet she didn't really do anything to influence the plot or whatever. It was just a setup episode for her, basically.
She had her setup episode, but no, I feel like it was important because when she wants to talk to Chiaki, I like that I had a face to put to it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
And then also there was reasoning at the end for her to find Chiaki on the floor, foaming at the mouth.
Do you think she's going to cause some more misunderstandings?
I do, because we know she has beef with Karen right now.
Yeah, okay, so she'll probably try to make Karen's life miserable somehow.
Yeah, and
or maybe
now,
she'll by maybe pushing her sister to go out with Keita. That's probably what's going to happen.
Maybe, yeah, now we have this issue because Chiaki's just found this out. I'm just wondering how Amano's going to react if he gets to find out also that who she is.
I'm just so glad that Aguri finally feels a little bit more comfortable with her relationship with Uehara, because God, that was taking on forever. So we'll see. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just interested to see what part Konoha is going to play going forward. I don't know. We'll see.
Are you happy that a game was front and center this episode?
I actually was thinking about that in the episode. I was like, oh, hey, board games or games too, that's totally fine. And if they're influencing the plot because of the mechanics of this game, that is an A+ effort for me.
It's absolutely what it did.
Yeah. So that was a good job by them. So, okay, fine. Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, actually, your retelling of that episode made me like it a little bit more.
It was so, and like I had to keep pausing to write these things. I felt like I would have laughed through some of this stuff in here, so it just killed me.
Yeah, I think I missed some things, especially like the looks that Aguri was giving to Keita. I missed those and stuff like that, so that's funny. Yeah. All right, okay. So let's move on to the next show, which is on Fridays, and it is Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul, episode 20. It's called From Heaven to Hell. So we start off right where we left off last week with the demon guy confronting Nina in the square while Favreau and Kaiser are being held back by the Onyx soldiers. So this like demon assassin like insults Nina's dragonfolk village, calling them cowards who bow to humans and like live with them, and that they're just weak because of that. And that really pisses Nina off, so she yells at him that her mother's blood isn't tainted, like he said, and she begins to transform. Unfortunately, surprise, the demon dude also transforms into a huge blue dragon with these glowing blue horns, and he's much bigger than Nina. So stepping away from that scene, back to the other scene we left off last episode, Sophiel tells Elle to step away from Azazel. And Alisand like is thinking to himself, he can't believe that this little brat Elle is the holy child, because it gets mentioned. And Jean is thanking Azazel for taking care of Elle, but she says like, I'm going to be taking him back now. But Elle like steps behind Azazel as if to hide. And Azazel's like, no, he pushes him forward towards his mother, and Elle like looks at him. He doesn't understand why. But then he hears fighting from where Nina is, and Elle flies off, and then Sophiel like picks up Jean and flies off with her. And Azazel like clicks his tongue and like runs off after them as fast as he can, because he realizes they're going to be in danger. And then Alisand like sits there and thinks to himself about what that Onyx guard told him about how he's not even worthy to add to the squad, and he just thinks about that for a minute. So Nina is back battling the blue dragon, and she can't really hold him off, though. He's just too much bigger and too much stronger. And so after
he's like 3 times her size, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It's ridiculous. It's not like Bahamut sized, but like really damn big. And after a short battle, his blue horns are like glowing red from firing off so much energy. And Nina is thrown to the ground, and she transforms back into a human. She's like naked, but she's not like, they don't take advantage of her nudity in any way. But the Onyx Guard says he'll take over from here to the dragon, and he unsheathes like a blade from his gauntlet, and he goes to execute Nina. But before he does like Favreau yells out and interrupts, warning him that like, hey, if you execute Nina, you'll have to answer to your king, Cherios. And Favreau's like, yeah, he has this weird taste and has taken a liking to that little shrimp, referring to Nina. And the Onyx Guard like tells Favreau, don't get it wrong. Cherios only thinks of Nina as a disposable plaything. And Nina disagrees, saying like, no, he can't think that, because we danced together and we kissed. She's very naive. But the Onyx Guard tells Nina that Cherios was the one to order her death. And so Nina's eyes like well up with tears, and Favreau... Which we know
is a lie.
Yeah, we know it's a lie, but it still like hurts her badly. And Favreau, seeing her tearing up face, flashes back again to thinking of Amara from the previous show. And enraged by this, he just draws a hidden dagger from his boot and like slays the soldier who's holding him. And Kaiser uses that commotion to get loose as well. And they both run towards Nina, but the blue dragon's in the way. But there's this beautifully animated sequence where Favreau like jumps up on Kaiser's shoulders and like propels himself onto the top of the dragon's head, and then runs up his back and down his tail and jumps over him at the same time as Kaiser is sliding through the dragon's legs since he's distracted by Favreau. And so they get to the Onyx Guard and they start like fencing with him, but the dragon's like swinging its tail down and like making these huge clouds of dust so they can't really see. And like one soldier interrupts, like he tries to contain Favreau with that green energy ball we've seen before. And it's funny, Favreau's way of getting out of this is just like swinging his dagger really hard and being like, no. He just gets out of it with like the power of anger, which I thought was really funny. So they're backed into a corner, though, at this point, and it's not looking good. But that's when Elle and Sophiel and Jean show up, and Elle's power puts the Onyx soldiers just right out of commission, forcing them to the ground. And Favreau is slightly confused about why Jean is back, and then slightly turned on by Sophiel. You could definitely tell. He's like, who's that?
Sophiel's badass and hot.
Yeah, he's like, who the hell's that? And Kaiser's like, some kind of god. So Azazel also arrives and says, I'll handle this dragon, the blue dragon. But Sophiel's like, get out of the way, and I'm about to handle this shit. But they wind up just not backing down. They both fight the dragon together. Sophiel basically summons Shiva from like Final Fantasy, like who freezes the dragon, and it starts breaking it up into pieces as it freezes. And then like Azazel, who had flown inside the dragon's mouth, like does some kind of attack from inside its belly, and it just like completely blows the dragon to pieces. It was a good 1-2 punch. But yeah, Sophiel is a badass, as you said. So yep. Jean runs up to Nina, who like and hugs her, but she's just like inconsolable, thinking that Cherios has betrayed her love. And Kaiser decides to like tie up the Onyx soldiers but leave them alive, which Favreau thinks is a dumb idea. I totally agree.
Yeah.
The head of the soldiers, though, like arrogantly tells Kaiser that there's nothing to do that you can do to stop Cherios' plans. He doesn't say what they are, but he says there's nothing you can do to stop it. So the heroes all return to their hideout, and Kaiser asks Sophiel to explain Cherios' weapon one more time, and she again tells us how it's this ancient magical artifact, and the angels, the gods, are not even sure of the scope of its power or how Cherios has been able to use it. But once they're finished, like Jean asks Elle, do you not want to be around me? Is that why you don't want to come back? And he explains that's not it. It's just he believes that the power that he has is for a higher purpose. But Bacchus like screams at him, yelling at him, there's only one reason you were born, and that was for your mom, not some higher calling, but a gift from your father to Jean. And Elle asks Bacchus, then why did you bring me to the surface world? And Bacchus is just like, that just sort of happened, which is true. And so like Anne scans, oh man, I keep mispronouncing things. Elle scans the whole room, trying to decide what his next move should be. And finally he tells Jean he'll return to the lands of men of the gods with her, and he apologizes. And Hamza tells Bacchus that running his mouth like this is going to come back to bite him. And Bacchus says, I know what I'm doing. That reminds Sophiel of something she knew about Bacchus from their past, though it's kind of unclear what. After the meeting, we see... Oh, what'd you say?
In another earlier episode, they hinted that they were actually together at one point in time.
Oh, that could be it.
I remembered that. And then the duck is kind of like, yup.
After the meeting, we see Nina still processing what she's learned, and she's looking at that claw necklace that Cherios gave her, and she throws it against a wall and like kicks it and screams, screw this, and she falls to the ground crying, clearly heartbroken. Elle finds her since he was coming to say goodbye, and it was interesting. She pulls herself together like instantly and puts on a smile for him because she cares about him so much. And Nina tells Elle, I'll sleep with you in the carriage tonight since you're going back, since like that's what they used to do. And Elle's like, I've grown up a little bit since then. She's like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah, and she knows he's a boy now, so
yeah, also
okay.
True. But Elle can tell that Nina's not all right as they're walking back, and Favreau was also tailing them, scratches his beard thinking about like what to do with this situation. We then see Cherios, who's eating a meal alone, and the Onyx Guard reports back on what happened. Cherios is leaving for Abos, where the weapon is, and he's going to leave the castle in the Onyx Guard's hands. And Cherios says it's time to break the rift open. The Onyx Guard also lies and says that they disposed of the red dragon last night. I think he was still trying to gauge Cherios' reaction. But Cherios kind of remains like poker-faced and calm. Meanwhile, DS at the castle is looking for Alicent, who hasn't returned. And then Bacchus is yelling at Sophiel and asking like what she was thinking when she explains that she came down to the surface world without Gabrielle's permission. And of course, Bacchus is the last person who should talk because he does everything without permission. But Sophiel kind of smiles at him and says, I think I finally understand where you're coming from. And then she tells Bacchus to stick around with this group and help them discover the king's true intentions. So Elle has to speak with one final person before leaving, which is Azazel. And Azazel, the only thing he tells him is just remember the name Muguro. And El like breaks down crying at that, and he hugs Azazel and then thanks him for everything he did for him, and then he like runs away to hide his tears. So after the credits is where some real shit goes down. Alisand is laying in wait for El as he runs back, and he goes up to El, pulls a dagger out of his back like pants or whatever, and then just stabs El right in the chest and leaves him bleeding out on the floor.
Well, we didn't see exactly where he stabbed him, did we?
That's true, but he stabbed him somewhere in the front, so it's either the chest or the gut, basically. And he just is bleeding out on the floor, and it's funny when he bleeds out, he has this like magical blood, so it's got like red and then like sparkly glitter coming up from the blood, but it looks real bad. I guess this was his idea for proving to the Onyx Guard that he's worthy to join them. So man, what a piece of shit Alisand turned out to be. And Alisand is gonna get it in the next couple episodes, because oh man, big mistake on his part.
Yeah, when they find out who did it, they're gonna get the revenge. And do you think El will die?
Yes, I actually do think he will.
You really think he'll die?
Yeah, I think he will, because that propels everybody into rage mode. I can't even imagine how Jean is going to take it, though. Jean's
going to freak out. This'll just absolutely break Nina at this point.
Azazel is going to go crazy, too.
Yeah.
Elle is probably like the worst person they could have killed, because so many people have close ties to him and care about him so much. So yeah, like I hope that death actually stays true. I wouldn't mind if like his spirit somehow comes back and helps them in the end, I don't know, but like not. I think he should die. I don't know. We'll see. He could be like
surprised
reborn.
if he does die. I think that's too drastic for this show.
Maybe.
I mean, the only other time they really killed somebody off was like for the finale in the first season.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other times when they did something that drastic, and it's few and far between, but we do only have a couple, like 4 episodes left or whatever, so it's possible that this could be like the final catalyst for the final showdown. We'll have to wait and see.
Yep, but that's all I got, man.
All right, so moving on, we've got Made in Abyss. Episode 9 is called The Great Fault. So Reg and Rico are proceeding into the 3rd layer of the depths, which is the Great Fault. They descend down this like tiny, smaller shaft, which Ozan told them about, because the main shaft of the Great Fault has this huge like updraft, like these winds, and there's not a lot of good handholds to go down. There's also a lot of like flying like monsters, so it would be dangerous to go that way. As they're descending, like the narrator is commenting on how death is very impartial and is sure to come for everyone, but as humans we cling on to life and we actually like this living in such an unjust world because it makes things interesting. Back on the surface, Shiggy tells Nat, and I guess they're going to do this at the start of every different section because they have like the map up there that they copied, and Shiggy is telling Nat that Rico and Reg are probably around the Great Fault because of calculations he made based on their abilities. And
which is interesting because they stalled out for a while there, and then now we're just like moving at a breakneck pace.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Shiggy is saying that, you know, the Great Fault is a vertical wall that spans more than 4,000 meters vertically. And the strain of ascending at that point becomes very great, and people also start to see and hear things that might not be there. So yeah, Rico and Reg come to the bottom of that small shaft that Ozan told them about, and they find an exit hole carved out by this family of like little hamster-like creatures, which I think are later called... I can't remember.
I don't remember at all, but they're pretty cute, and I guess they taste good.
Oh yeah, so I'll come up to it later. So...
and it's very easy to mercilessly sacrifice them.
So they skitter off, like as they, Rico and Reg crawl by them, and they see a hole that's facing out into the open and like Great Fault. And so they peek out to see what's going on, and there's these flying creatures called Madoka Jacks, who are clearly part of the sub-series Hamura Jack and friend to the Kyubey Jack. Okay, no more Madoka jokes, I'm sorry. So they're basically like these half insect, half flying squirrel, like sky dragon things, I would say.
Ugly.
Yeah, they're very ugly. But they look very dangerous as well. So they decide, like, we can't just crawl down the shaft then. We have to find another critter hole. And Reg spots one a little bit further down the cliff face. And they decide to make a break for it. Riko smartly grabs 3 of the little critters from their hole. And she's like, sorry, little guys, I would have liked to make a nice meal out of you. But then throws them out into the air for the Madoka Jacks as bait. And then Riko and Reg, like, spelunk down to that next hole.
I feel like when she did that, that's when the show freezes and it pulls back and it plays like some rap music and it's like hard as fuck. Sunglasses over her eyes. Because I was like, Jesus, that's brutal. She did it brutal. With like no fucks given. I was like, God damn, girl.
It may have been brutal, but it was very effective because they were able to get to that next hole without...
I mean, it was either them or her, so...
Yeah, exactly. They're not noticed, but as soon as they get inside the hole, like, Riko's like, hey, the den goes down further here, and Reg is still by the entrance, and he hears a roar of some kind of animal. He can't tell what it is yet, but he feels very unsettled by it. So they make their way through this maze of tunnels by following along behind those little skittish animals from before, little critters. And they finally come to an opening and they see some natural light and lower themselves down. And there's all these like rocks and this like circular tunnel structure that look like man-made stone ruins of some kind. And Riko tells Reg it's part of an ancient ship. And then she like happily runs off to look for relics while Reg thinks to himself, what is a ship doing here?
It's like a wooden seafaring ship that's halfway sticking out the side of the cliff. So that is really weird.
Was it wood though? Because everything looked like stone. Like, I mean, but it looked like the bow of a ship, but like it looked like it was stone. Like, so I was wondering if it was like maybe an airship, or if it was a seafaring ship and it was just wood, or I don't know. As Riko goes deeper into the ship, though, she starts to step in some droppings and looks up to see the skeletons of some animals further in front of her, as well as some hatched eggs. And she determines that this must be a Madoka Jack's lair. And then she looks up a little further and sees a mother Madoka Jack protecting a nest of eggs. And it comes after her, and Reg grabs Riko just in time to get her out of there. But he ponders whether he should fire his incinerator because he's thinking about what Ozen said about him being helpless for 2 hours afterwards. He decides it's too dangerous at first, but he decides it's just too dangerous. He has to fire his incinerator because there's no other way to stop the creature. So it blows a hole in the Madoka Jack. It kills it, but it also blows a hole out into the cliff face again. And then we see the thing that roared before was that large red flying dragon called the Crimson Splitjaw from the first episode. And not only is it a Crimson Splitjaw, it's the same one because Riko says, hey, it's got like a wound on its head.
And it's got a vendetta it's going to collect.
It remembers us. It's still coming after us. So it chases after them, chases them back deeper into like the tunnels and the den. And this is where those skittish animals start getting their revenge because they try to like form up and block their exit. And Riko's like pushing against them, like, please let us through. And the Splitjaw is getting closer and closer. And also all this time, Reg is like 2 minutes from falling asleep because he used his incinerator. So he could fall asleep at any moment. Luckily, as the Splitjaw gets closer, it roars really loud, which causes all those little critters to like get the hell out of there. They're too scared. And so Riko falls in down this shaft and Reg falls in after her. And like he basically, just before he falls asleep, he says like, stay right here, don't go anywhere. And of course he falls asleep and then she's like, her stomach growls and she's like, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go find something.
I was like, man, the first thing she does is not that.
At least the first thing she, after that, she thinks is like, okay, I'll bring Reg with me. So she like pulls his hands out of his sockets a little bit and then drags him behind her like a sled as she scouts for food. So she smells this sweet smell of these Barakocha fruit and rushes towards it. And she wonders, like, she comes into this room and she's like, sees this like little like flaps on the ground. And she's wondering like, oh, why is the smell coming from the ground?
It's like a pod. Oversized
pod or something, yeah. And then the pod opens and she falls into it and realizes that like, oh, this is where the smell is coming from, and then sees a whole bunch of those small critters, which are called Neritantans, like floating around. That's why I couldn't remember the name. It's so weird.
Yeah, and at this point I'm like, man, you fucked up pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like, oh, she's inside a stomach. And then we see she's inside this huge purple creature called an amakagame, which is just like this huge lumbering thing that's like, you know, attracts these little critters to their death with that smell of the fruit. So Riko's like, I gotta get out of here before I'm digested. So she pulls out her knife and like stabs it into the side of the stomach, and like the stomach wall reacts and like hits her and like blows her to the other side, but she like swims back over, and then she just finishes cutting through the stomach and drains all of the digestive juices, and like the creature like shrivels up, and she and Reg make it out. Except they're now covered in the juices of this fruit that is the favorite food of those little critters, and they all just jump on her all at once and start nibbling. And so she has to run away from them. They start chasing her through tunnels, but she finally loses them, and she makes it into this shaft, or in this cavern that has an uphill slope, and it kind of looks like Superman's Fortress of Solitude or something, because it's got these like crystal-like formations. And unfortunately, though, she sees some light. There's an exit, but it's uphill, and at this depth, when you ascend even a little bit, it's really taxing. But she decides, like, we gotta get out of here. So she starts carrying Reg up the hill really slowly, and she starts stumbling, losing her balance. She, like, vomits, and, like, she keeps trying to go. And then she starts seeing those visions that she was warned about, where of, like, Maraluk and Ozen telling her, hey, it's okay if you turn back. You can go back now. And then Nat and Shiggy and Habo are saying the same types of things, like, it's okay to give up if you want to. But she keeps pushing through, and finally, near the top, she sees her mother, and her mother's like, come with me, and she reaches out her hand and she grabs her mother's hand, and the whole screen goes white, and it's like she's transported into one of the gondolas that descends down to the abyss, and she's going up with her mother, and she's like, Mom, we're going up, like we can't do this. What about the curse of the abyss? And her mother says, oh, don't worry, the curse doesn't affect you anymore. And they get to the top, and they're greeted by this huge crowd, and all of Riko's friends are there, and she starts running towards them, but she slows down halfway, and she looks back, and she wonders, where's Reg? So she runs back to her mother and asks what happened to him, and she says, Reg is at the bottom of the netherworld. And Riko says, well, if Reg's not with me, there's no point in returning home. So she then, like, we see her snap out of it. It was all a dream, and it was with her final vision that she had to get through, and she's still carrying Reg, and she makes it to the top of that slope with him. And she smiles at him and tells him, like, I was being protected by you even when you were asleep. And so that's unfortunately when the split jaw finds them again. Reg wakes up just in time to see Riko pulling out her Blaze Reaper pickaxe, which Ozen told her how to use. And she, like, before she can swing it, like, Reg sees the split jaw and, like, flies into it and knocks it back a little bit. And then Riko's like, oh, Reg, you're awake. And she throws him the Blaze Reaper, and he swings it as hard as he can into the side of the Splitjaw's head, which, like, it makes an explosion in the side of its, like, ear, basically, or its, you know, the side of its head, and knocks it back down, further down into the abyss. I don't think it's dead. I think they're probably going to meet up with it again. It's like their arch rival, but it'll be back, but it's gone for now.
Probably.
So Riko, like, hugs Reg and tells him that, like, it would have been impossible for her to make it any farther without him, and she only made it for this far because of him, and she thanks him. And Reg thinks the same thing to himself, that, like, if she wasn't with him, he wouldn't have made it this far either. So Reg has this little pocket meter, kind of like a pocket watch, that shows how deep they are. So it's turns out they've made it 6,750 meters deep. They're almost at the bottom of the faults, and, like, there's, like, these prickly things on the sides now, and these eggs that he wonders if it's okay to eat. But then some fog clears towards the bottom, and he realizes, as they look down, and Riko realizes, hey, it's the Goblet of Giants. We're almost at that fourth layer. So yeah, just one episode to get through the whole Great Fault area, which is pretty quick.
Yep.
I don't have much to say about this episode. I just liked the pacing of it. It was much faster than usual.
There's a lot of that. The whole thing was just like really one long action shot, so that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, and apparently there's news out this week that the final episode of this show is going to be a 1 hour length special.
What episode is that?
Is that 12 or 13? I don't know. It's probably 12.
So if it's 12... Damn it, I'll have to review it.
Good for you. That's funny.
But this is episode 9. Man.
Maybe we can split it in half and you can review the first half of it and I'll review the second half.
Yeah, we can see.
That would be equal. So yeah, maybe they won't rush to a conclusion here. Maybe we'll get a little bit more closure than we thought we would because of that extra time. Also, that damn rabbit girl better goddamn show up next episode. I've been waiting for her for 8 episodes. It's like
driving you insane.
This is the 9th episode. Like, so she won't even be introduced until episode 10. Like, why was she in the OP and ED? It's like such a spoiler at this point. If you weren't going to introduce her for at least 10 episodes, then just don't put her in the OP.
And also what's interesting on the picture that Amazon Prime uses, she's even more front and center than Rico and Reg.
It's so weird. It's such a weird decision, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm assuming she's going to show up now in the Goblet of Giants, but I could be wrong. So that's all I've got for that show.
Okay, let's move on to 18F episode 9. Idols don't go to the bathroom.
Can confirm.
This might be my favorite episode of 18F so far.
Shark Ladies.
Yeah, so we open with an idol group called Shark Ladies performing. The main girl makes a little speech at the end, and the other girls look at her with like hate in their eyes. And like backstage, the girls are like super passive aggressive towards her, and they don't try to hide it in all the least. Basically, they're just like really jealous because she's more popular.
Yeah.
She then later on goes out to dinner with some movie people, and like one of them kind of makes a move, rubbing his hand on her leg, and they're just obviously trying to sleep with her and stuff.
Yeah.
But then like a rabid fan barges his way into the restaurant and like starts stabbing her repeatedly, screaming about his feelings being betrayed and whatnot.
Yep.
So suddenly our next scene is the girls from the rest of the idol group and even the guys who are trying to take advantage of her from the movie deal all wake up in Nightmare Idol School, and the guys have all been transformed into girls, and even one of them is like a little girl, and they're like, "Where's my little me?"
Yeah, he's like looking down at his crotch, and he's like, "My little me is gone." But I like the one who transforms into a little girl because he has such a low voice. It's really funny. And then he does like the pose. He puts like the 2 fingers, like the peace fingers over his eyes, like, "Guys, I'm a little girl." It's really funny.
So yeah, and in this school there can only be women, so that's why they got transformed. But our main girl, Misaki, she's apparently, we're talking about Misaki from Action Heroine Cheer Fruits, and she had gone on to apparently become a very famous idol.
I buy this. This is definitely
and
canon.
When she got into the adult world, she realized it's a lot darker place than what Action Heroine Cheer Fruits shows it as. But anyways, Misaki's there, and now she has like blonde hair and refers to herself as the Witch of Youthful Beauty. She's also like dressed up in a dominatrix outfit and whatnot. And she says she'll take them all through hellish training so they become real idols. She's like super ruthless, and like one of the girls is like, "I'll remember what you're doing to me." And she like turns into a piece of poop through like a magical girl transformation scene.
That was one of the best magical girl transformations I've ever seen, where she literally transforms into a piece of shit.
So that was hilarious.
That was amazing.
She then has them like doing the leg lifts or whatever they are, and like her manager's there, and she's like, "I can't do it anymore," and she ends up setting her fucking crotch on fire. She's like rolling around and like then finally on her stomach, and she's like literally just pelvic thrusting into the floor. It's crazy. And then like one of the other girls is like, "I need to go to the bathroom," and Misaki's like, "First-rate idols don't go to the bathroom. What are you going to do about it? You want me to set your crotch on fire?" And then like her crotch starts smoking, and then she like
she pees herself to put out the fire.
She drops to her knees and pisses herself.
Oh god.
And it, like, it shows it and everything. And so, like, at this point, I'm like, all right, it seems this episode is going to focus on the sexualization of idols. First, we had rumors being spread about Misaki, then the movie guys rubbing her leg, followed up by shirts being ripped off by her whip, and then burning crotches, followed by pissing themselves.
Yeah.
this show is going to look at it all.
Yeah, all the stuff that idols have to be put through. It's
yeah. So it's actually touching on like real world problems with idols and stuff. So I gave it points for that. But there's also a new girl there named Nana that Misaki feels is actually trying to become a top rate model, and she is working super hard. This girl also has a strange, slightly masculine voice, I noticed, and I was like, I think this is Haruto.
That's a good guess. I didn't catch on to that until it was...
The voice was like feminine, but not. And I was like, and we hadn't seen her yet, so I really thought this was Haruto, obviously, because I put this so early in my notes. They are now on a run, and like Nana pukes.
And it's a rainbow!
just like Aqua from Konosuba.
Yeah, and then it's also like when she turns back, like she still has a little vomit on her lips, and it's rainbow colored.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Like the poop earlier was like multicolored too, so that was crazy. Misaki says, "Where's happened to your spirit yesterday? Was that all a lie?" And then like that's when she looks at her with the still vomit on her face and like happy determination in her eyes to continue. And Misaki's like, "All right, I can respect you for this." Then we just have like this really harsh training montage with all kinds of antics. Montage is over and everybody's passed out except Nana and Misaki. And Misaki asks Nana what kind of idol she wants to be, and she replies with, "Like Misaki from Shark Lady." Nana does nothing but praise her, and Misaki tells her to look up the real last name of somebody called Frank Marnie. I did not do this. Did you?
No, I didn't look up that one. I didn't really get where they were going with that. And that never came back around either. So weird.
Some very Japanese joke that I just don't think translates at all over is what I think.
There's a couple of those in this episode. Yeah, it
happens later on too. So more training montage, everybody performing better and actually seeming to enjoy it at this point. And they even do a whole beach scene because every anime needs a beach episode. Universal law, no way around it. Misaki proclaims them the best idol team at the end of this like whole montage and stuff. So Nana is walking through the halls when Lily is there and confirms that Nana is Haruto, and like Lily is curious why Haruto just seems to be playing around. It turns out Haruto is just a huge fan of Misaki and just loves being there with her and just doing nothing, and just because he gets to hang around with her. Lily's like, well, I've had enough of this, and turns Haruto back into a man. So we already know men can't be in this academy and whatnot, and Haruto ends up getting captured and brought to a dungeon with like lots of male specific torture devices. This is kind of unsettling to actually watch.
Yeah.
Misaki says she's really disappointed in Nana and to punish him, but she says there's like a little bit of reluctance, and like everybody else is about ready to torture him when Misaki says to stop this, it's just too much. And they're like, oh, so we expect you to deliver the final blow, basically by cutting off his dick. But she doesn't and like runs away crying, and that's where she does more name dropping, which I could not figure out. And since the witch left, Haruto can now do things in the dream world they couldn't before. And I can't believe I'm about to say this next sentence because this is what happens. Whew. Nobody better quote this and like make it into its own little segment. He breaks his bonds and transforms his dick into a djinn and beats everybody up and plasters them to walls with a sticky white substance.
Yeah, he shoots the genie djinn, whatever, shoots things out of his hands that are sticky white substances that like stick the girls to the wall.
it's bad.
And I love Misaki's like, you actually did that? And he's like, oh yeah, it's a dream. I can do anything.
Yeah.
It was great.
So Haruto goes outside and talks to Misaki, who thinks she is a fool because even in the end of her dream world, she was the one who lost and ran away in the end. A quick flashback scene of Misaki getting photographed with a man in front of a hotel. She and her manager are apologizing to the producer, and he says Misaki can be forgiven because she has many fans in the business. And he's all like licking his lips and shit. Very hint.
Yeah, hinting that like if she sleeps with them, she'll be forgiven. Yeah.
She thinks she was holding back for others, but Haruto convinces her she was holding back for the sake of her own dreams and becoming a pop idol. And then like her blue door appears as an entrance to a stage. She makes it back to the real world and has a performance followed by an announcement just like in the beginning. This time, though, she looks to her partners with nodding approvals and announces her retirement as an idol. She explains she has learned of love and now will continue her career as a solo singer. I was so happy this was an episode that had real world ramifications and dream world consequences with closure.
Yeah.
Favorite episode so far.
Oh, yeah.
And addressing the real world problems with pop idols being sexualized, not being able to date. That was really cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we had a nice beginning, middle, end with things wrapped up. Some of my complaints to the other episodes, I'm like, well, what happened to the real world once they got out of these dreams? We never found out. I'm like, all these questions. But what do you think about this episode?
So I just want to say, if Japan wants to start an idol group called Shark Ladies, I will 100% buy their merchandise. I will support them. Also, their main theme song in this episode is better than any music that ever came out of the Love Live series. I'm just saying. Not Idolmaster, but Love Live. Fuck Love Live. I just wanted to say fuck Love Live. When Misaki also in this episode didn't want to say like penis out loud in that one scene, like where like Haruto is like hiding his penis and they're like, what, are you going to cut it off? Blah, blah, blah. She's like, she says this weird line where she's like, you girls should know who the Minister of Health of Sao Tome and Principe is. And I assumed like that this was an inside joke that the Minister of Sao Tome and Principe in the real world would have a name similar to like Ochinchin or something, like the Japanese way to say dick or penis. I dug so hard into the internet to try and find this
and got nowhere.
The only thing I find is like the health minister of that country. Their name is like Maria de Jesus Trovoada, and like that has nothing to do with Japanese. I have no idea. I think she was just basically saying random stuff. I don't even know how they came up with that, but maybe it's some Japanese news article I don't know about that got really popular that they were referencing. Who knows? But also, yeah, basically in the end, if you were intrigued at all by this premise of this episode of this like sleazy idol management industry and the lengths like girls might go to pursue fame to like meet their dreams, then please, for the love of all that is holy, go watch Satoshi Kon's film Perfect Blue. Which
I've heard a lot of good things
amazing.
about it.
Yeah, that is very unsettling in a slightly less hilarious way than this episode is, but just an incredible movie about many of the same issues that this one tackled. So yeah. You ready to move on?
Yeah, let's finish up this podcast with the last show.
On Saturdays, we've got Action Heroine Cheerfruits. Episode 8 is called Lil Sis Aoyama says she'll start directing. So Misaki starts off the episode by reporting back to her aunt, telling her that the Cheerfruits have like led to a noticeable increase in tourists arriving to Hinano by train, and like sales of goods have gone up, and the next performance they have is going to be their 5th. So they're really doing well. And her aunt tells her, don't get ahead of yourself. You're still only at the starting line if you want to stop the demolition of your father's performance hall, which has a capacity of 3,000 people. So she needs to keep working towards that, her aunt says. Misaki gets a phone call though from one of the girls saying, hey, there's trouble, you gotta come back. So she runs back to the train station where they rehearse, and the new stage that they've built has like these huge basically pokeballs that the girls like jump out of in their performance, and when they do, they all wish Misaki a happy birthday. That was what all of the commotion was about. There was no actual trouble, they just wanted to surprise her. So they made her a cake, and they also give her this lemon-shaped good luck charm, which they tell her to open if she's ever in trouble.
Yeah. Also, her birthday's August 9th.
So yeah.
It's mine.
Oh, wait, you have August 9th birthday?
Hell yeah. Leo.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Who would have guessed?
So, that charm that they gave her doesn't come into play now, but I could see that coming back in the future. We'll see. But after the rehearsal, they watch this top 10 review show, which is like an idol review show, because they want to see if they moved up in any of the rankings. They see a clip of this performance by the Okatani City Peaches, whose their routine completely copies this Japanese folktale of Momotaro, or Peach Boy. And Misaki worries that their performances are too similar and that they'll make the same mistake they did with Kaju Daio and get another like cease and desist from them. So they don't know what to do, but Mikan the next day decides, all right, I'm just going to rewrite the whole script from scratch. But maybe they can reuse those Pokemon balls as like a different prop and revamp the action sequences. And Genki has some ideas for action, like wire stunts. But a flyer blows into Misaki's face, and it's very heavy-handed moving the story forward. Just like a flyer blowing into somebody's face is pretty funny. And it says that there's a festival coming up on August 19th, which coincidentally is the same day their next performance is supposed to take place. So they'll likely get less attendees because the festival is in like the town over. So they decide, though, they can maybe make the best of it if they use the fireworks from the festival and they time it as a special effect for their show. So the girls decide that Genki is going to be the one to direct this time, and that she's going to be really strict with them because they have to get the timing exactly right for the fireworks and they need to make the performance better. So the rehearsals start the next day, and Genki acts like this Spartan commander. She also purchased a bunch of ashtrays from Amazon so she could role play as like just this asshole Japanese director. But she doesn't smoke. She just like is eating 1,000,000 lollipops and putting the like leftover lollipop like sticks.
Can we say diabetes?
Yeah, should probably. So An is doing all these like acrobatic moves like on stage, and like Genki's like, you're getting it wrong. She starts like throwing ashtrays at her like frisbees, and An keeps dodging them, and she does like one particularly ridiculous dodge where she's like in a full split, and Genki stands up and is like, yeah, that's it, that's the real An Akagi. And basically what she was trying to tell her is that she noticed that her choreography was too similar to this Mako Kamiso girl who plays like Kami Dio. And so she's like, you can't be just a copy, you can't be an imitation. And so An takes that to heart. And then she's got advice for everybody else. So she tells Mikan and Hatsuri that she wants to change their fight style. And she's like, you don't have like very powerful attacks. How can we make your attacks more interesting? She's like, I want you to try butt strikes. They're like, what? Butt wrestling? And so Hatsuri's like, okay. She starts taking her pants off. And then she starts like grabbing Mikan's pants and pulling them down. And Genki's like, no. You don't have to be naked for this. And she's like, oh, okay. So it's like basically Keijo they start doing on stage to practice. So
yep.
She then tells Midorikawa to go stand under a waterfall to become closer to Buddha so she can better express her kind character from the script. So she goes and stands under like a water hose. Just stands there and gets soaked. And she tells Yuki to get more into character of Sign Blue, who, if you remember correctly, is from Mexico in her lore. And tells her, like, remember your allies from Mexico, and remember you have an attachment to the blue sky. And somehow she interprets this as putting on a sombrero and eating tacos. That's how she gets close. She
got the sombrero and the poncho, and she's eating tacos at the edge of the stage. I'm like, this show is fucking ridiculous.
And then finally, Genki tells Roko to further her character as the female like lead enemy. She needs more sex appeal, so she needs to try to seduce the president Misaki. And this gets Hatsuri, of course, the pink-haired girl, jealous. But Genki says, like, you need to draw the eyes of the fathers who are going to be in the audience. That's your role. And I was just like, we just talked about this on 18F. Yeah, exactly. So Roko tries to seduce Misaki, but it just comes off as kind of ridiculous. But this gives Genki the idea that, like, the female lead enemy is actually, like, if they're shy rather than like really confident, that's kind of original. So she says, you should work that shyness factor. And then finally, in the end, the only girl left is the drill hair girl. And she's like, okay, it's finally my turn. And Genki says, I have no particular instructions for you. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, no, just keep doing your carefree thing. And I was just like, wanted to high five Genki for like wrecking the drill hair girl. I was really happy about that. Throughout the entire process, Genki probably ate like 60 lollipops, and you see them all in the ashtrays. The girls are totally exhausted, and they're about to go home, but Yuki stops them from leaving and says, like, hey, if we do one more run through of our characters, I think that performance will truly permeate us, and like we'll be breaking through our limits like true heroines. And so they all do one more run through. And then so finally, after practice ends, we get one of like the first, I would say, truly fan servicey scenes of this series. Like, there's been some fan service scenes that have had plot relevance. This one was just fan service. They're all just like sitting around the dressing room in their bras and panties for like a minute and getting changed. And there's not much other point to that scene except for Yuki apologizing for being rude earlier when telling them to go back and practice more. But at home, Yuki tells Genki like she wants Genki to be able to be in the spotlight somehow for her, like all the work she's doing behind the scenes. And apparently Misaki also told Genki the same thing, and Genki is kind of admiring Misaki because she's doing all this work behind the scenes too. And like one of those things is she went to the next town and she talked to their fireworks crew and told them like, hey, our performance is going to be using your fireworks as part of the landscape. Is that okay with you guys? And she brings them some like Hina nectar cookies as like a goodwill gift. And like these old guys are like, oh yes, honey, thank you very much. And like our kids love Hina nectar or whatever. And they're like, yeah, one of their wife comes and like yells at them, saying like, it's Hina nectar, honey. It's just really funny. And then like Yuki just tells Genki that she's just so happy to be able to stand on stage with her again at all, because like how they grew up always performing together. And then the episode ends with this joke that the girls like all made those like Teru Bozu dolls that you often see for this festival. They all made them. So when they get to like the stage the next day, like they have hundreds of them and they hang them all up. And like the guy at the train station's like, what the hell is all this? And then they just all vow to make their performance a big success. And that's where the episode ends. So the next episode, of course, will cover the big performance. But yeah, that's about it. I'm continuing to enjoy this show for whatever reason. It's just solid, and I think it's pretty funny. So yeah,
I'm pretty much right down the middle with the show. I don't hate it and I don't like it.
Yeah,
I'm just watching it for a podcast basically at this point.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely not for you. Like it's not the kind of show you like, and it's not like the perfect show for me either. But it just doesn't. I like that, like, except with the exception of that bra and panties scene in this episode, like the things I was prepared to say is that like, while there is fan service in this series, like it's very limited and they mostly focus on it for humor, not for sexual appeal. And they don't like zoom in on the girls' butts all the time and like linger there and like give you a really good shot or have the girls like touching each other's boobs. Like, no, it doesn't happen. So it's avoiding all those tropes and just doing it for like cuteness and like jokes, and it's fun. So, and then the rest of the story is just kind of fun, girls working together. So yeah.
Woo woo.
Anyway,
anything else you want to add to that? Or?
Last thing I will say is I got my Chihayafuru premium Blu-ray set, and I watched the first 9 episodes of the dub version. And I would say that the dub is not like fantastic. There's some weird voices in there, especially like the child voice for Wataya Arata. But it does not take away at all from the show. And one of the big pluses of the Blu-ray is, god damn, does the uncompressed music sound amazing. And oh man, I found myself tearing up like every single one of those first 9 episodes at least once, mostly near the end, because that's where like the big musical theme kicks in and that's where the dramatic moments happen. But I was just sitting watching through those first 9 episodes and thinking like, this is why this is my favorite show. Oh man, it's so good. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got something I want to mention too. I've been keeping up with Hajimete no Gao.
Oh, yeah?
And my opinion on the show is it actually has a really good romance hidden in that show. The main girl character, she's not the jealous type. When the main guy gets caught in like a precarious situation or stuff, she doesn't immediately blame him. And she kind of knows he was actually trying to do good instead. I just like that change. And there's a shot at the end of episode 8 that like was just really cool. And the show's just it starts off terribly. I think it's gotten better. I think the writing's pretty good for the most part. I feel like the guy writes the show and then the producer comes out and he tells him, oh, you forgot to do your pedo joke again. So he writes in every episode throwaway scene of a pedo joke, and every once in a while he's like comes out and he's like, oh, you need to do another pedo joke at the end. and they're always just throwaways. They're so out of place. I don't know why they think it's funny for some reason. It's horrible. They did episode 8 was the beach scene.
Oh
yeah. So fat guy's watching these two like little girls build a sandcastle. God.
Oh God, Jesus! That show. It could probably be a really fun show if it just cut those damn scenes out.
It would be fun and it would be funny, but they gotta cut that shit out.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can look past that and actually kind of pay attention to our two main characters' evolving relationship, it's pretty good, actually.
So one more thing this week, public service announcement. Destiny 2 is coming out, which you might know from our introduction. But Leo and I are going to be playing a shitload of Destiny 2 over the next week. And then probably binge watching next week's anime. So if next week's podcast is like not up to the usual standards, it's because we're like zombies from having played like 100 hours of Destiny in 1 week. So,
I told myself I will do one review a day. I'm off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
That's smart.
So I can at least knock out 3 shows, and then just play Destiny. This is going to be insane. We're going to play so much stupid Destiny.
I look forward to it.
Oh, me too. But is that all you got, Bcom?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And also follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well. We'll see everybody next week.
Peace.